next to my name, it says stand-up comedian.
Seriously?
In 8th grade, yeah. It took a while to get there because I was on the music path for a while. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. Rabbi Teller, unbelievable. Show it, Teller. You're showing so much. And I love that so much for you. Like, I love that. Like, I can't curse. No, I'm not going to do that. But I love that. Show it, Teller. Teller, keep showing because that's gratitude. The only way to do comedy and get good at comedy, the only way to get good at comedy as a stand-up is stage time, is to get up on stage and do it. As uncomfortable the process is, which means you take risks and you try things.
Welcome back. Can you believe it? It's season 4, the season premiere. We're at it again, and I am so excited. And honestly, I have to say, for me, I'm a little bit starstruck right now because for me, we have normal people on our show and Teller, but it's rare. I don't know if we've gotten anybody. He's a normal person. I mean, like flesh and blood. There's blood going through his veins and stuff like that, but when you make a phone call and they're like, yeah, Rabbi, not a big deal. I'll come onto your podcast. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We have an incredible guest who's visiting here from the East Coast because we are here in Los Angeles, California. And we have Rabbi, we won't call him Rabbi, but we'll call him Reb out of respect. Ami Kozak, who's an incredible comedian, impersonator, advocate, and just an incredible guy. We have him here as our guest today. And as I like to say, we like bringing on people who have a story, people who are pushing the envelope, people who are making a contribution to society. And I thought, what an incredible guest to bring in Ami. So without further ado, I'd like to say thank you, Ami, so much for being here. Thank you so much for agreeing. Well, I don't know if he's Ami right this second, but we'll see. Maybe that throughout the episode, there might be some other people who might come out, and we'll see what happens.
We'll have to see. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Really nice to be here.
Thank you so much,
thanks
Ami.
for the intro. That was a nice hock, nice hype. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So how I like to start off an episode, I usually like to say, like, okay, how was it that you, Ami, give us a little bit about your journey. Mm-hmm. How'd you get to where you are today? And along this conversation that we're going to have, mm-hmm. I might take you a little bit off on a tangent if something kind of clicks.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll kind of veer back.
Yeah, I have always been, I think cut out to entertain. It's been in my bones since I was a young boy in the Borscht Belt, Catskills, entertaining my parents' friends, jumping up on the coffee table. So I got bit by that bug pretty young.
Are you the youngest
Of course.
The youngest of many siblings?
Not many, but the youngest, that doesn't surprise people. And I'm a short king, so you got to work with what you have. Short people are funnier. It's just the truth. You got to, you meet these tall guys who are just like, hey, duds. But short guys got to work for it. You got to develop a nice, sharp wit. And so that helped. So jumping on...
Got called into the principal's office a couple times.
Yeah, I always could crack up the teachers too. So I had a nice way around not getting into too much trouble. Because if you can make the teachers laugh, even if they have to kick you out, they're like, oh, man, you gotta go. But that was very good. So if you could impersonate like the principal, then you're making fun of the boss to the teacher. So while they have to send you to him, they kind of love it. They love the ridicule of the people that piss them off. And then they could talk about it in the teacher's room and stuff. So those are my early audiences. Parents, friends, teachers, classmates. Always doing impressions, always doing shtick. But I was also a musician too. So I was always singing as a kid and then began studying music as a young kid and started a band in high school and went to music school for college. I took that very seriously. And my social path was always as a comedian. My professional path was as a musician because there wasn't really any sort of... defined career or school for comedy, but music had a little more of a charted path, an educational path, even though that was also out of the box for a young Orthodox Jewish boy to pursue music. But that's what I did professionally and I still do. I went to music school. I began writing for film and television, commercials.
So at age 8, if somebody said to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you say, I want to be a comedian, or do you say, I want to be a bass player?
Well, no, I didn't play bass until I started learning instruments at like 13. I played piano as a little kid, but it was with some old lady who had like shaky hands and I hated it. It was like a chore. So I quit after like a year. Wish I didn't, but I began taking private lessons, learning bass guitar and music theory at like age 13 through high school. And I didn't really play so much sports, so having an instrument in hand is very helpful for the cool factor. So that was fun. But in my elementary school yearbook, everyone says what they'll be when they grow up, and it's a yeshiva elementary school. So everyone says like, baseball player, and it's all nonsense. Like, everyone's going to become lawyers, doctors, hedge funds, whatever. But it doesn't say that in a yearbook. It says like baseball announcer, because he likes the Yankees. Or, it says all sorts of odd jobs and out of the box jobs, and that's usually not the case. But next to my name, it says stand-up comedian in 8th grade. Yeah. It took a while to get there because I was on the music path for a while. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, began doing music for film, TV, ads. That took me to LA. In LA, I started my band, Distant Cousins. We started doing a lot of stuff for original music, original albums and records, as well as getting music on commercials, films, television, composing for animated shows, working with DreamWorks and Netflix and all that industry stuff. And then fast forward to around 2019, I started doing online content. That led into like COVID, where a lot of live stuff shut down, and I really doubled down on building my online audience through comedy. And that's when I started saying, hey, there's this like interesting opportunity here on social media to use it not as a commercial, but as a show, not as a way to advertise your projects, but as a way to actually make fun content. I sort of figured that out. And impressions were one of the easiest ways to just put stuff out on a consistent basis. And I started doing shtick on that. Things started to go a bit viral, got around. The rest is history. Then in 2021, we moved back to New York, to the East Coast.
Who's we?
My wife and I and kids. Took them all back to the East Coast, be closer to family. But
Can I know how many kids you have?
4.
Leon
And then at that point, I really jumped into the New York comedy scene, clubs, events, stuff like that. Had my podcast that I started, and that started to build up. And then October 7th happened, which opened up the whole other door and dimension to becoming a little more serious about commentary, analysis, talking, and speaking out about things. So all those things combined kind of form what you see today. Yeah, in my there you go. And now I'm here.
So
I'm show and teller. So
thank you, Ami.
it could happen.
It could happen. You could be next.
Yes.
So I think I want to say that something that kind of caught my attention. Obviously, your impersonations are pretty incredible, and maybe we'll get a little bit of that shtick as we talk more. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I think really caught my attention is that, wait a minute, here's a comedian, a stand-up comedian, somebody who does impersonations, but October 7th happened, and all of a sudden I saw a completely different dimension of who you are as an individual. And I was always laughing, I was always following, but now you're getting serious in front of the camera, and you're saying really important things. That's what caught my attention, because I saw a completely different dimension of who you are, being an advocate, being a voice, using your platform as somebody who can educate the masses. And do you see yourself now as this responsible figure who has what to say in this area? And do you like having that responsibility, or is it just such a matter of fact thing? Do you now time your posts and say, you know what, it's time for me to say something regarding what took place in Israel or what took place in Gaza? There was 3 questions there, but
it's a good question. I didn't like the word advocate initially, because I guess any new label that starts to pop up is a little bit of this weird imposter syndrome where you're like, what? I'm not that, because you don't become a thing until you do the thing. So I didn't like to prematurely label myself anything, but there was October 7th and there was October 8th. So on October 8th, you're like looking at the reaction to what's going on, and you're seeing something very disturbing, which is, while there was some outpouring of sympathy on some of the world stage from Western governments, you saw a lot of either apathy, confusion, or even support and celebration for it. So then something really changes. I think everyone has their October 8th moment in a different way. There's October 8th Jews who discovered, whoa, I am a part of some community, and they're discovering it from the first time, that they have to really question what it means to be a Jew, what their Jewish identity means to them, if anything at all. Is this something I fight for? Is this something I stand with? If you're a left-wing Jew, you realize you're totally abandoned by the other so-called marginalized groups that you thought you were allies with and showed support for, and they're completely turning their back on you. And BLM is putting up a poster flyer of a paraglider that says, like, you know what it is. We stand with this, whatever, support. And that was there all along. If you were sort of on the right, you sort of saw that, but you felt pretty abandoned if you were a left-wing Jew. And there were all sorts of October 8th moments for different kinds of people, depending on they were on the spectrum of their Jewish identity. For me, I didn't have the problem of not feeling like I didn't have a community. I had a strong foundation, a strong education, a strong sense of identity. I wasn't too public about my politics because I looked at social media purely as an entertainment platform. I would talk about stuff on my politics. I didn't shy away from my ideas or anything. But on October 8th, you're like, wow, we're in a world that I didn't know we were in. It revealed itself. It's sort of the historical, Jewish traumas, people started screaming out like, hey, how did the Holocaust happen? How did these things happen in the past in civilized societies? And all of a sudden you don't have that question anymore. You start to see exactly how a world that you thought was good and civil and everyone agreed upon and had basically the same values didn't. And so that felt pretty broken, and it's kind of hard to start joking around in that environment because not only is the trauma of October 7th and the horror and the tragedy so raw, but the fact that you now exist in a world that doesn't all agree on it, on who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, you're like, you can't have comedy in a world like that, because in order to joke around, in order to have fun, you actually need a common, framework, a common set of values in which these are all just jokes, but maybe they're not all just jokes to everybody. Maybe people actually mean the hateful things they're saying. You have to all of a sudden, like, if you lose that common ethic, that common shared sense of values, then things are less, you can't joke around in that environment, because the understanding in a comedic framework is like, we all actually agree that we all should respect each other and we all have the same sense of value so that we can joke and not be serious about things. But all of a sudden, things become more serious. So I felt, obviously, the time-wise, I didn't feel like making anything funny, and I felt like all I could do was, social media is inherently performative, so it always feels a little weird putting up the camera to just kind of talk. But I felt that that's the only thing I could do at the moment. And so I just started sharing my thoughts on the situation, and I started doing videos consistently for a little bit that were just commentary, kind of dispelling some of the confusion about what I thought was out there, especially for a lot of people who I think wanted to support Israel, but were so trapped already by the sort of moral confusion, calling it a conflict, saying it's complex. So they felt like even just showing solidarity with Israel was somehow inherently controversial. And that was already showing me just how damaged the conversation was and the culture was around this issue, when they could see evil so apparent, so in front of your face, and what Hamas had done, and still not be able to call that out. I think there was a lot going on there where people weren't able to, when they see evil, like, some people are just, you have to confront it and fight it, but some people have this instinct to say, no, that can't be what it is. It must be something else. There must be something I don't understand going on here. So I felt compelled to dispel that confusion, and I started speaking about that. I thought that would be a departure from what I was doing. In a sense, it was, like a technical sense, but it actually deepened my relationship with the audience. I lost maybe, 15,000 followers or whatever.
Did you really?
Yeah, but, if you like impressions of Donald Trump or Gary Vee or Jordan Peterson, and you also like Hamas, it's a very strange subset of people. I'm like, I don't understand who those people are. And that's okay. And I ended up making up for it in the long run, and I ended up deepening my relationship. It took me into really interesting conversations, public debates. So, yeah. And the fact that it was considered a brave thing to do, to condemn October 7th and support Israel, is bizarre. To me, that's very sad that that's considered brave, but it is what it is. And it's not brave by comparison to people who actually have to go and fight wars, lose limbs and friends and loved ones. I lose followers. It's a big deal. It's comments, so whatever. And then eventually, obviously, I started to find my way back into comedy using satire to make fun of some of this stuff, taking on a little more of a political angle, and then getting back to silly stuff and having fun. But it just took a minute, and then now I had this whole other dimension, and people started to not only, I wasn't just making them laugh, I was making them think. And I thought that was, eventually you morph into that, and the imposter syndrome wears off, because, like you asked, do I like the label? It's like, yeah, if people find value in what I have to say, I appreciate that. And you never want to just start imitating yourself. A lot of times in the content creation space, you replicate what you do because it works. So then you wake up saying, okay, what do I have to say now about Iran because something happened? So now I got to say something. So you never want to get caught in that cycle. So you try to.
So I was curious if you ever caught yourself in that kind of cycle, or does it come from your kishkas, as we say, or does
Comes from the kishkas. I'm not a historian. I'm not a scholar. There are smarter people than me. There are people that, I'm a comedian and entertainer first. I have more authority in all those regards, in music and comedy and entertainment. That stuff I know at a deep level. The other stuff is what I have opinions about things to the extent that I'm as informed as I can be. But I don't go out there trying to. I think it's less educate but more communicate. I wouldn't call myself an educator. I know a fair amount about the history and the story of Israel and Judaism, a fair amount about it. I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish lifestyle, so that informs you and you get a nice strong foundation. But, when I have debates on these things, I try not to approach it as somebody who's the authority on the history, but just a thinking person with opinions. I'm open to other alternative opinions, and I think that's what you're getting when you get me. I don't try to pretend and put forth like I'm some scholar. And, as much as there's a temptation to get behind a sort of tribal set of talking points that keeps you in an echo chamber. And I try to catch myself as much as possible if I'm regurgitating something, the thing
inauthentic.
The thing you're supposed to say when you hear that, the hasbara kind of upbringing gives you a certain thing. So you have to be able to kind of shake that off and really try to think about these things and think about it from the other side as much as possible in order to have integrity and come at it from an honest place. I think there's flaws in the hasbara, because of that, because people are raised with a perspective I think is correct, but if you're not willing to make any concessions or see a full 360 picture to at least know what the alternative narratives are, sides are, you're less equipped, you're less informed, and therefore at a big disadvantage in this space.
Can I know how your parents are still alive?
Yeah.
When you told your mom and your dad, you said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. Mm-hmm. They're like, not a doctor, not a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. They're still alive. They're in their 70s, so they're just like, oh, hey. There's not much going on. They're chilling, but yes.
What gets you up out of bed in the morning? Like what's your, some people say, oh, okay, I'm going to save the world by.
Usually a screaming 5-year-old. That can happen.
Abba, Tati.
They've been trained. They go to my side. I don't know how my wife did that, but she trained them. No one approaches Mama Bear when she's sleeping. It's all me. So that gets me up. But what gets me up? Look, the fact that I can go to my studio and do what I do on a daily basis and people respond to it is a bracha.
You find meaning.
It's a bracha to do that. I whatever hardships come with it or challenges, it's better than most things that I would want to ever spend my time doing. And so even when it's hard and difficult and all the stuff, travel, work, the grind, so to speak, it's a good grind. My parents were always very encouraging about it, so that wasn't an issue. Luckily in my house, my dad would say things like, for the music, you should really, also just, take some business classes, focus on the business. He's an Orthodox Jew, so the business is a big ball of cash. I understand that. And so they always I think they saw it. So they were pretty encouraging. My dad has a good sense of humor. He's a funny guy, and I think they didn't have the opportunities when they were growing up with clean Holocaust surviving parents. He didn't have a lot of options, to get out of that. And so I think they took some pride in the fact that we had more options. Our generation had more options to explore different kinds of opportunities, indulge in, whether it's private music lessons and arts and these kinds of things. They're not crunchy, artsy people, but they always appreciated what I was able to do. And so as long as I exerted the work ethic and discipline and I wasn't bumming out about anything, they were encouraging.
Do you have a message? And if you do have a message, what's your message that you're trying to put out there into the world? My
message?
Or let's say your essence. We're all trying to leave our mark. Do you feel that you have a mark that you're trying to leave? You're maybe not conscious about it, but if so, I try to get deep with people and find out, what is it that they're trying to leave in the world? And what's that thing that you're leaving? I mean, yes, your Jordan Peterson is, Jordan, tell us, what's your mark that you're leaving in the world? But is it laughter?
Well, it's like, I don't really like the way the question is formulated because it's not what you leave. It's what you espouse to begin with, to attend to. You don't just leave things behind in the world. The world leaves behind you. And it's a trace of your bloody legacy. You could stare off into the abyss, but good luck with that. So.
I always love making people laugh. I get that reaction. It's like a dopamine kick. You just thrive on, that shared thing, making people laugh, making people dance, connecting with it. I mean, I always just, what I'm grateful for is I don't have to question if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't wonder if should I be doing this or should I be doing that? I'm pretty sure I'm in line and lockstep with what I'm giving as much, giving the devil its due, doing as much as I can to nurse the potential of whatever gifts or talents or abilities I've been given, whether it's impersonations, comedic sensibilities, musical skills. I apply a ton of effort and discipline to nurturing that and putting that out into the world. And if that's, I've been blessed to have those natural inclinations, that's not enough because having natural talents can also be a liability. People can just rest on that, but I work very hard to make sure I'm matching that gift and putting that out there, and it's making that impact. Whether it's in the form of the sketches that we're doing, the stand-up, the music, I don't have to question if I should be doing that, which sometimes I know can be a struggle. So not being burdened with wondering what I should be doing in life, I don't take that for granted. And so, yeah, I just try to make sure I'm worthy of that and making sure I'm earning that, that bracha of being able to not have to wonder what I should be doing. Like one of the things that's very clarifying, it's a little scary, but to know exactly what you should be doing. Like it helps clutter out all the noise. It's like, oh, first time I'm on stage playing music for people, I'm like, okay, like this is what I don't have a choice. Because I deal with. I don't have to wonder what will fulfill me, what will this, what will that. I know what I'm meant to do. I do my best to work as hard as I can to be able to do it.
And this is validating, I think, could be validating for many of the audience that could be listening. Yeah. Is that I deal with young professionals, and a lot of the young professionals that I'm meeting with are struggling, and they don't know what their purpose is in life. They don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
They don't know. They're trying to seek validation from their mother, from their boyfriend, from society.
Yeah.
And they're going through life, questioning.
Yeah.
And as we'd say, what a chaval, what a pity.
Yeah.
Because I think they're living life for other people. But it sounds to me like what I'm hearing from you is that, okay, I found who I am. I found what my talents are. I found what my gifts are. I'm not resting on my laurels. I'm putting work in. I'm doubling down, as Gary V might say. Gary V.
I haven't done that in so long. By the way, Rabbi Teller, unbelievable show and teller. You're showing so much, and I love that so much for you. Like, I love that. Like, I can't curse. No, I'm not going to do that. But I love that. Show and teller. Keep showing because that's gratitude. Right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That was good.
Yeah.
So
you have to double that, as Gary V said. You have to double.
One of the I'd say, difficulties of growing up in an Orthodox Jewish life or in a Jewish culture and community is that you are doing things for other people constantly. You are living with the expectations of others over you. You're raised with a constant judgment.
What are you talking about?
Everybody is, success, the measure of success of a person. Nobody cares what you do. They don't care if you care about what you do, if you're fulfilled by what you do. They care if you're doing well. Is he doing well? I mean, there's a few professions where they're just like, look, okay, he's going to teach. He's going to be a Rabbi. There's a couple of areas that get a little bit of a pass. But for the most part, it's like the work that you're involved in. As long as you're doing well, then you get respect. That's the currency. success, financial success. And, like, oh, what is he? Oh, he sells perfume boxes. Oh, yeah, all the perfume boxes, or the tinfoil they use in Nassau. They got a contract with it. The buttons they make for the buttons they make that go on the little kids' apparel. Like, he made all the Baruch Hashem, he's doing very well. They don't care what you make or what you contribute, so to speak. They just care if it works for you. And I don't mean that as a harsh judgment. I think it's just a reality that I think we are attracted and drawn to professions that are financially stable, and it's not necessarily a bad thing or good thing. It's just the reality is, like, there's a reality to it. And so professions, it's not driven by like as much passion, creativity, output isn't as much the currency. It's somewhat, in other words, success ultimately, so that you can provide a Jewish life for your kids and all that, which has its requirements and stuff. I think that ends up pushing a lot of people into a sense of doing things as a means to an end and not as an end in and of itself. And I kind of understand that. I'm not even knocking it. But the reality is it ends up having people who try to take the stable path, but end up 10 years into it and hating it. And they still struggle even on the financial end too. And there's difficulties and challenges with all those things. And they're doing something they don't really want to do as a means to an end. So I don't know. It's a trade-off. And, I was fortunate to grow up in a upper middle class Orthodox Jewish household that was supportive of me going to school. They paid for my Jewish education and were very supportive when I was an intern, not doing just trying to get my feet wet in a business. So I it's not necessarily for everybody. You have to find your ways to make it work. But I just think the consequence of that, for better or worse, is that you do get a lot of people making automated decisions of what their choices are career-wise, what their options are professionally, because that's just what's available. And I was just fortunate to have certain abilities and inclinations and sensibilities that demonstrated, not just to myself from an interest standpoint, but from externally, people saying, whoa, you really have when I would perform music, even in high school, I'd get a real reaction. I would really, from the very early
regardless of what the stigma might be.
Yes.
You're not a doctor? You're not a lawyer, Ami? I mean,
yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. You're following your passions in life. You're a musician.
Yeah.
You're a stand-up comic. Even today, I imagine. And you are on the top of your game, Kanai Nahara.
Yeah.
You're doing really amazing. But I imagine, based on what you're saying, people are still like, oh, you do that for a living?
Yeah, I get that. But
you're a comedian?
But I have to explain it a lot less now, because now it's more like, it's more like they're giving me my flowers. That's because the work can speak for itself. When you're just starting, you have nothing to show for yourself. It's a very hard position to be in. People go I'd be at at the Shabbos table in the middle of Riverdale or New York or whatever, and they're like, so what do you do? I'm a musician, comedian. What do you mean? What do you do? You do weddings? I understand. What do you do? Cover band? What do you do? It doesn't compute. What do you do? So you do weddings. You must do simchas, something like that. So there's things they have to already try to categorize it for themselves in order for it to compute. But I think today's better than it used to be. I think people see the creator economy, the maker economy. There's all these different opportunities and ways to make a living and make money. It used to be the entertainment business. The understanding was there was a caricature. Hey, I hear it's a very tough business, because you got to be greenlit by somebody. The only people in the 90s and 2000s that you're watching, there was few and far between. Sitcoms, you see hit songs on the radio, and it's true. That was a very, very hard environment, and it was like a lottery almost. So, But then in the age today of startups and people forming their own businesses and online businesses and all these kinds of things.
So would you say the phone has been your best?
Oh yeah. So I was lucky to come into it in a time where the opportunities were pretty endless in terms of having full creative control, getting to build your own audiences. We're at a time now where you could be famous to 300,000 people, and that's it. In the 90s and early 2000s, either you were world famous on a hit show or nobody knew who you were, complete obscurity, and you were just doing local stuff because there was no means to distribute your image, brand, or whatever it is you do. There was no social media. It was just network television, cable television. And so I can understand that, to try to do it on your own terms.
You needed an agent. You needed a
So
manager.
Now all those barriers are gone. And I think the timing just really, I was fortunate to be in that environment. And so people judge it less now than they used to. In the world that I grew up in as a kid, none of those potentialities existed. People couldn't even imagine having your own media TV show empire through the phone. None of those things.
Mr. Beast or my kids, they watch these kids opening up candy and they got like 60 million views
So
on
I
these.
don't even fault the community for being harsh on those things because there was no way to even fathom what a life like that could be. You want to be like such and such. So it all comes with that. And there's some projection where people are judging you, but really they maybe have an issue with what they're doing. I don't know. I don't think about it too much. It's just me against me. Other people's opinions and judgments are for them. It's okay, and I'm focused on the work and the process.
Do you feel that you've reached chaval, we say pity, but have you feel that you've reached your heights, or what more is there for you now?
Well, now that I'm on Show and Teller,
The sky's the limit.
bucket list. That's it.
Mr.
I'm
Trump,
done.
Mr. Trump, can you tell us what you see for the future?
I think I've reached the pinnacle. This is it. This is winning, folks. You're winning so great. Show and Teller, Rabbi Teller, unbelievable. Doing Kira for the masses. He's getting so from. Everyone's getting so from when they talk to you. I got to tell you, it's too much. They're black and white. They're walking around. It's too much. Velvet yarmulkes all over Pico because of this guy. I can't believe it. He's just, the Kira is unbelievable. Frummer than probably you've ever been frummer in your life. I've never seen a frummer guy who's making people frum. He's talking to these young people and they're lost. They're lost. They're a mess. They're in hell, but you're helping them, and that's great. So, what was the question? Yeah.
Have you reached your heights?
No. Oh, no.
Like, what do you, I mean, sorry, it sounded like an interview, but like, what would you see yourself 10 years from now? Like, what, have you thought that far in advance, or do you or another way of answering it, if we were to give you $1
million. Yeah, the framing of the question is flawed because I'm not trying to achieve a particular height. I'm trying to do what I'm doing
and not again, because I'm asking this question because I think people automatically assume you reach a height and then it's
when you orient yourself towards like particular benchmarks or goals, you're going to be disappointed because the chart and path is always unpredictable. And then sometimes you hit your marks and your goals and they never quite feel like they're supposed to feel. The imagined manifestation of certain goals and accomplishments are much different in your head. Just like you imagine what it would feel like to get married or have a kid or have a this or that, all the different things you want. It's good to be oriented, but you're trying to get to certain places as a means to continue to do the work that you love to do. You're not doing the work in order to get to certain places.
So what am I hearing? It's the work?
Yes.
You're living for the work?
Yeah, you
not living for the goal, living for the work,
Yeah,
living for the process,
absolutely.
living for the engagement.
Jimmy Carr, as a comedian, said, like, if you had all the money in the world tomorrow and still would continue to do what you're doing today, like, you're a rich man. Like, if that wouldn't change a thing in terms of what you do, obviously there's different things I would have the ability to say no to or be a little more particular or things like that, and it would add a certain flexibility, with greater financial success. But it's if you're still going to keep doing what you do regardless, that's kind of the thing. I want more success and more audience and bigger shows, and just you want to grow as a way to keep facilitating the thing you're already doing. I don't do the thing in order to get big. You want to get bigger to help scale what you're doing.
To get the message out.
Yeah, to continue to do what I'm doing. So it's like, because otherwise, if you really don't like what you're doing and it's just a grind and brings you down, but you're trying to get to certain benchmarks, like you might hit them, but most of your life is spent doing something you don't want to do and hating it. So the benchmarks will come up short. They will underwhelm you. They won't meet a certain expectation. And so then what's the point? It's more like the goals and stuff along the way are like a chart that you're oriented in a direction you want to be going and growing, but it's about what you're doing on the day-to-day, if the craft, and being, happy and fulfilled by that work. And so that's why you want to grow. It's like, I don't want to do what I do to get famous. It's like getting famous really helps facilitate, doing what you want to do because more people like what you're doing and are responding to it. Swish. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Mic drop.
I don't know. Yeah, that's
I know.
That's
I think
the healthy artist attitude, I think, which is loving what you do. So if you want to keep doing what you love to do and feel like that's your mission to put it out and what you're meant to do, that requires
you don't care about the results. You care about
the results. It's not a hobby. You're trying to connect and have a relationship with an audience, but the audience is what allows you and sustains you in order to continue to do what you're doing. But you're not simply trying to just get an audience, Because if you get an audience to sustain you to do something that you don't love, that you don't want to keep doing, like what's the, it's sort of a misguided sense of priorities. The audience that you build that can sustain you for the purposes of doing the work that you feel you're meant to do. Like it's about that, first and foremost. Because it takes so much.
There's a lot of chachma in what you're saying, a lot of wisdom in what you're saying.
It takes so much to do that if you're just doing it for the audience's sake, if the work you're doing is just a means to get some abstraction of fame, notoriety, and you're living for that, it's sort of, you're going to come up short in terms of feeling fulfilled by that. Ultimately, like real relationships, real family, friends, wife, children, like you have that sorted out. And the rest of the relationship is a different kind of relationship. It's a beautiful relationship between the audience and the artist and the performer, but it's on a professional level. It's what you're putting out professionally. It's the output, and they can help you keep sustaining that work. I think people sometimes are looking for fulfilling their personal needs with that audience, but really the audience loves what you do. They don't know like you personally. That's fine. Like there's a transactional element, which is not a bad thing. They love what I do for them. And I love what they do for me. But I don't confuse that relationship with sort of personal relationships, It's a different thing. It's its own sacred relationship, there's no question. But there's a hierarchy of, most important things. And so if you get lost in that hustle and there's nothing else, like, personal in your life, it could be difficult.
I'll insert myself as a rabbi right here.
Yeah.
So it says in Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, chapter 4, Mishnah 1, Ezehu Asher. Who is the wealthy person? The wealthy person is the person who is
The Samech V'Koko. Yeah.
the person who is happy with his lot.
I like that. Yeah.
You can see the
Yeah.
the person who is happy with his portion, the person who's happy with his lot. And I think what you were just saying right now, to some degree,
Sure.
is that being happy with your lot means I have to find my craft. I have to find what gives me joy. I have to find what keeps me in the present.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's, if somebody's living with the present and living that, okay, I'm here, this is what God has given me, this is what I'm meant to do, and I'm getting chen, I'm getting pleasure and joy from what it is that I'm doing, that's a wealthy person.
And it's not this, there's people have all different ways of doing it. Some people have a higher standard of, valuing stability, and they use what they've made financially to be able to do other things that they're passionate about. Travel to different places, contribute, give charity, be all parts of, like, this is not a judgment of better or worse. It's just what works for different people. And there's, I'm not even knocking the idea of work and career being a means to other ends. But again, it's just, my advice, I guess, is more to the creatives out there or people looking for that. Just understand that where the priorities are, that you have to really love the work you're doing, and that comes first, like the passion and love for the work.
And then
the
longevity
process
will probably still...
And that follows, yes. So that will follow. But if you chase it for the particular goals, those will disappoint you, especially if you sacrifice, investing in your personal life and family life and relationships and those things.
Totally off topic. Do you ever get butterflies before you go up on stage?
Oh, yeah, of course. Not for music as much anymore. Music, when you're a young musician, as a teenager or whatever, a little bit, not so much. But comedy, I'm a little younger as a comedian than I am a musician. I've been doing music since I was 15 years old, 20 plus years in the music business, performing on stage as a musician. And music gives you a bit of armor. You have a lot of protection. I'm with a band, I'm with other people. And you can get away with a little more with music. Comedy, you're very exposed. And
Lights, camera, action.
You're very exposed. You're like walking a tightrope, You can hit a wrong note in a song, no one cares. But you say the wrong thing on stage, people get angry. Or there's a real discomfort. So music and comedy are very related in a lot of ways. They're like cousins within a similar family, but...
They're distant cousins.
Yeah, exactly. Different strengths and weaknesses. Leave the comedy to me, Rabbi Teller. But they're related, and so I look at them in interesting ways, coming from the music world and now being in the comedy world. But certainly there's nerves before comedy. Comedy is not for the faint of heart. You have to bomb sometimes. Like, it's just part of it. You never really have to bomb as a musician. You could just practice at home until you're ready to play. Comedy requires you to.
What do you mean you have to bomb?
In order for Like, it's just going to happen. It's part of the process. You have to practice.
You're
stuff.
saying you're going to learn from your bomb.
The only way to do comedy and get good at comedy, the only way to get good at comedy as a stand-up is stage time, is to get up on stage and do it. As uncomfortable the process is, which means you take risks and you try things. You can practice a joke at home all you want, but you have no idea if it's going to work. You have no idea. You can practice a song and you know, okay, I can play this song from A to Z and I'll be able to perform it properly on stage. No one has to know and see the warts and all getting to that process. Rehearsing a song with a band, all the mistakes, the mess ups. You run it again privately.
Stand-up comedy, you're dealing with the crowd. I mean, that's
Stand-up comedy is an audience-dependent art form where you can practice material at home, but you get up on stage and you're dealing with an environment. There's all different factors. Someone gets distracted, kids in the front row, something just doesn't land. The same joke can kill with one audience and then completely not land with another audience. So there's inconsistencies. You know, some people might not get the joke. Some people might be offended by the joke. Sometimes the vent is on and there's an air vent, so your jokes just don't land because it's too distracting and messy. Sometimes there's food. Sometimes they're Jews. So you're just dealing with all sorts of factors. And look, I guess technically what bombing looks like as a professional musician means people aren't really listening. But so what? You just kind of play through it and you're kind of either you fall into the background or you do an event. But with comedy, you can listen to your own music all day and you're still having fun and it's fine. And it wasn't the best show because people may be tuned out, but who cares? But if comedy, you're up there just doing
comedy,
jokes.
You bomb, you can get slapped on the face
And also,
at the Oscars.
If no one's listening, and you're doing your jokes, you just feel like a total clown. But that's like the parallel to that in music is like people are kind of checked out. Doesn't sting in the same way as a comedy set that's not landing because it depends on the interplay between you and the audience. That's a part of the show, the give and take. Music requires silence. In comedy, silence can be like the enemy. Like you're trying to get reactions that are visceral, visible, felt, audible. With music, you want people quiet, you know? So they're different things. Music takes a lot longer as a barrier to entry. You have to really focus on the craft and learn how to sing, perform, play an instrument. So it takes years to do that. That's what music has that comedy doesn't have. In terms of comedy, you got to get on stage pretty early on and start working stuff out. And that's the training. So bombing is like part of the process of learning. Bombing is data. It's not failure, you know? It's a healthy way to look at it. They rejected this, but not because they hate you. You
can only get better though with some bombing, because need, as you said, you need the data points. You need to be able to understand.
That's what comedy requires: practice in front of people. That's very difficult.
So, for instance, tonight I'm not going to say but you're doing a trustee dinner tonight, right. And you'll come in maybe just so we understand your craft a little bit. You might have 3 to 7 jokes that you will say. Mm-hmm. You already have that. That's like part of your shtick, we'll call it. But because it's a trustee dinner, I assume you have to do research. Yeah. You have to understand who are the directors, who's this, who's that, what's the
no-go zones, the parameters. That's
part of the job. So you have to write new stuff every time then. If
you're doing a custom private thing, you don't have to write new stuff every time you're doing your own act. You like to throw things in just for your own sanity and keep things fresh. But generally in a crowd where they're not there to see me, I'm there to serve them and assist with something and help with the evening and lightening the mood. It helps to know. It's just good strategy to know who you're talking to. The personal, private kind of jokes can resonate with an audience. And
based off the establishment and what
then they also appreciate. They're like, oh, this guy knows who we are. So we connect, as opposed to let me tell you about my wife. You could do that. It sometimes can work, but it's smart to have a little bit of inside baseball. You know?
I mean, like what you circulated, you did a show last night, and but you showed as your marketing tools, you showed poking at a synagogue in Los Angeles and making fun of the rabbi, and I thought that was like.
Well, I was trying to get some of the local Yick LA people to come out to the show because we love that. I'm known in these parts for a certain rabbi, and you know who that is? Elazar Muskin, great guy. Are they taking care of you? Show and teller, old teller. What? Show and tell. It's cute. Podcast. Everyone's doing that. Trying to be cool. Okay. You know what? Try to give a drasha. That's hard. Ridiculous. Yeah. I want so I like the more niche you go, the more universal things become. Even if people don't get it, they get it. They're like, okay, that's somebody. even if they don't quite get the reference. So the more specific you get, sometimes the more universal, you know?
So I think we're going to leave with one more question,
Sure.
Ami. And if I could have you share with the audience, like what, not this is not your eulogy, chas v'chalila, God forbid. But if you could leave the audience with something that you'd like them to take with them, like a mantra that you live by, something that resonates with you, and if they can get a piece into your neshama, what would that be?
It's a tall order. A piece of my neshama. Well, what is the audience looking for? You know your audience.
The audience wants
direction.
They want meaning. They want purpose. They want direction. They want authenticity. And an incredible Jordan Peterson and Donald Trump and Elazar Muskin is incredible. But now it's the final remarks from Ami Kozak, and he's speaking to a group of 28-year-olds who are budding, figuring out life, and they see you as this, whether you want to call yourself as an influencer or not, but you are.
Yeah.
And
well, a couple of things to note. It's always easier and convenient for an older person to give advice to a younger person, to not make the same mistakes that older person made to get to where he is. So I say it with a disclaimer to say, part of the process of getting to a place where you're a little more stable on kind of direction and orientation is going through the very same uncomfortable process that you once went through as a younger 27, 28-year-old. So, it's awfully convenient for someone to say, okay, so don't do this, this, and this, and this. Well, yeah, hindsight's 20/20 in retrospect, but you wouldn't be where you are with the authority and experience of knowing what not to do if you didn't do those same things. So those mistakes and the uncertainty and all that is really part of the process. And you can't shortcut and skip those things. I think a lot of people look for the shortcut to get to what they perceive in a person a few years ahead. But a lot of times it's patience and the grind of that uncomfortable uncertainty, the figuring things out, that gets you there. And you can't change that. You can't shortcut that. You can't cut corners around that. Sometimes older people say, oh my God, in my 20s, I was so like this. So ridiculous. Was it though? Because the only reason you are what you are today is the amalgamation of all of those things. That foundation of bad decisions, wrong decisions, uncertainty, doubt. And you could say that was all unnecessary, but it's a little convenient to say that now because you got to where you are. So I say that, that's a little disclaimer before, giving advice.
I think that was a good answer.
But I would say that having a certain attitude of accountability is really important. It's always on you. No one else is going to, whether you're relying on this connection or this network, no, this person's going to get me this and this. Ultimately, you don't control what happens, but you control how you react to what happens. So taking ultimate accountability, having patience and taking ultimate accountability and putting in work ethic and time and discipline and consistencies to whatever it is you're doing. I heard a good phrase, which was, don't focus on making the right decision. Focus on making the decision right. I thought that was a really good piece of wisdom where you could constantly spend every second of every minute of every hour questioning whether you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing or not doing. There's a million different things you could be doing. Focus on the thing you're doing at the moment. And then off of that, you can pivot to other things. But get the most out of what it is you're doing because you never know if you're working in a job that's kind of stale, but you might be building up a certain skill set that can be applied to something else later on. You could say, well, I don't hate this kind of accounting thing and all of that. But then when you get into a creative position, if you wanted to go into something more creative or fulfilling, you have a whole skill set of being able to, be organized, manage your books, take care of business, revenue, all that kind of stuff that a typical creative might not have that skill set naturally, but you can apply that. So focus on professionally building up a skill stack of different things and focus on making each decision right for what it's supposed to be because you never know. And then if you have ideas or certain things, you can spin your wheels in your head all the time about all the things, but write a few things down that you want to do. Focus on systems instead of goals. Consistent things you want to be doing on a regular basis. Write them down. Put it in front of your face on a whiteboard and let that kind of prime your brain to be doing those kind of things professionally. And then apply that same kind of thing to, the painful overthinking of everything because most people are constantly thinking about different things. They're not doing anything. And actions will eventually define how you see yourself. You have to do things, be productive, put stuff out there. I'm not being specific because it can apply to any different field or career or whatever. But the actions will drive your sense of identity. You have to be doing things in order. Like, I didn't think of myself as an advocate. I started advocating and talking about things, and I'm more comfortable with the term. But those labels, those things that you put on yourselves will follow from what you actually do, the things you actually make, the things you actually create. On the personal side, I don't think any professional accomplishments would match personal accomplishments. So getting married, finding a good partner, spouse, wife, husband, having a family, having children, those are the things. You just got to do it. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you can't explain how much more meaningful and important that all is, because it kind of does dwarf everything else. And in terms of importance and the hierarchy of things, if you work really hard out there and you do really well and you come home and there's nothing there, that can really sting. But if you have something at home, I think everything else will kind of, be put into perspective of importance. Having a family and those kind of things in the long run is like the best investments you can make. And everything else can change and with time and shift around. But having a rock solid family is probably the most important investment you can make, because everything else stems from there. But if you don't have that, everything else kind of is on shaky ground. So I hope that's enough.
Wow. Ami Kozak.
And be Jewish and be frum.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. Thank you so much. Really, really, really grateful
Thanks
to
for
all
having
the
me.
personalities that came out today. And you should be gebenched, as we say. You should continue to have success
Amen.
in all areas of your life. Family, friends, parnasa, bracha. Continue to make people laugh. Continue to parnasa. You should continue to have all those things that you're hoping for, praying for, aspiring to have. They should come true 100-fold. And we should share in many more good times together.
Amen. Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. All right.
Leg.